Hello, my fellow readers. I am Mona Lisa, and welcome back or to Mona Lisa Reads. I am glad you have joined me today. If you've been following me since I started this channel, you see things are a little different. I finally got my bookcase painted. I've rearranged my books, did a little Christmas decorating. I've got something up on the wall. My office is slowly coming together, and I'm excited about it, but that is not what we are going to discuss in today's video. I'm going to discuss Agatha Christie and some of the things I took away from her autobiography, and I am very excited about it. I do want to say that I'm going to be discussing an Agatha Christie buddy read at the end of this video, and so if you are interested in that, please stick around for that. I'd love it if you joined in that. So, I want to talk about Agatha Christie. You want to know more? Let's get started. Since I have a plan of reading Agatha Christie's books over the next few years, I wanted to reread her autobiography. It was an absolute joy. I enjoyed every single minute of it. I annotated it so that I can refer to it in the future in different regards. If it's about her writing, about something that happened in her life, about specific characters that she wrote, I'm going to be able to go back and look at that fairly easily. I know that not everybody is into reading autobiographies or memoirs, and I also know that not everybody has the time to read her biography right now. So I thought I'd just share a few of the things that I saw as interesting or highlights within her book so that you kind of have some info to go off of. One of the biggest things that I thought that was interesting was she had no desire and no plans of becoming an author initially. Basically, the story boils down to her and her sister had read a book, and it was a mystery, and her sister said, "You can never write a detective story." She said she could. Sister said no. She said in response, "One day I will." It took several years for that to come to fruition, but it was during World War I, and she was working where she would put together the medications and dispense them, and she would have times where she'd be busy doing that, but then she'd have some free time, and it was during those times that she started to put together this detective story, and she kind of had a framework of the story, but then she knew she had to create a detective. Long story short on that is, she reflected on the Belgian refugees that were there, and she decided to make the detective Belgian and to be a police officer, a retired police officer, a retired inspector. And he has to be brainy, and he has to be smart, and he uses his little gray cells. Oh, gotta remember that, she says. And of course, she obviously does. And she talks about this inspector being a tiny, tidy little man, and that he liked things square and not circular, and everything has to be in its place. And that is how Hercule Poirot came into being. She actually talks about naming him. She originally had it as Hercules, and somehow she came up with the last name of Poirot, but Hercules Poirot didn't work, so she came down to Hercule Poirot, and that is how it all began for her. She does admit that she does regret starting his age, him being such an older man, because he would be well over 100, at the time of his, at the end of all of his books. So it is what it is, but that's how, as I said, Hercule Poirot came into being. Miss Marple, she doesn't even remember how Miss Marple comes into being. She just wrote Murder at the Vicarage, and it was a character, and she doesn't remember what, wow, how, whatever, of how she came to create Miss Marple, but she also didn't think that Miss Marple was going to become a character who was going to continue to live on in further books. So those two big, huge characters of hers, that's how those two came into being. And like I said, so let's go back to how that whole thing starts. So she creates Poirot, she writes the book, and it's The Mysterious Affair at Styles, and she signs a contract with the, I want to say production company. And that's not the correct word. What's the correct word? The publisher. And is a contract for 5 books altogether, and so she had more books to write, And that's kind of what started off her career as an author. And she just kind of kept going with it. It was something she enjoyed doing and something that gave her extra money. And after her divorce from Archibald Christie, it was a necessary thing for her to write because she needed to support herself and her daughter Rosalind. And so it went from fun to necessity, and down, I think, later years, it became fun again and something that she really enjoyed. And the thing about her writing is she did not, even after all the success she'd had, you know, her plays and books made into movies. She had plays on, you know, in theaters, and all the success of all of her different books. She still didn't feel like she was an author. She would not have called herself an author. And she felt like everybody one day would wake up and just start calling her a fraud. And I don't think it was until maybe at the end of her life that she really had embraced that she was an author. But she never specifically says that in the book. I just think she had finally come to more of terms that she was an author. So I just find it interesting that somebody who is so well recognized and praised for all of her writing did not, one, start out to be an author, and two, saw herself as an author, which is very interesting to me. Another thing that stuck out to me in this book is just her take on life and things in general. I have a lot of tabs down in the book now about her observations about a variety of different things. And she really was spot on about a lot of it. And it was a good reminder from her about how time is precious and should be used wisely, but also to enjoy life and to enjoy doing the things that you enjoy. And she talks about being 75 at the end of the book, and that she's on borrowed time, and that she was just going to continue to live life and enjoy being with her husband Max and her daughter and grandson and son-in-law. And she was just kind of waiting until death came and ushered her into the next part. And it was just a good reminder, you know, because we talk nowadays about how time is precious and do the things that you love. Here's a woman who died in 1976, and this book was written, I think, about 10 years before she passed, about life is precious. Do what you enjoy. Yes, you have responsibilities, but enjoy it. And yes, life has difficult times, but there is still joy to be found in life. So it was just another great reminder of that. Agatha Christie does talk about many of her books throughout her autobiography. Something I found interesting was the book that completely satisfied her was a book that wasn't even written under her actual name. It was written under her pseudonym of Mary Westmacott. It was actually the very first Mary Westmacott book that she wrote, which is Absent in Spring. It comes from a line in a Shakespeare something or other. I don't know Shakespeare. But it's a book about a woman who thinks she knows herself and thinks she knows who she is, and what happens if she has to spend several days basically by herself. She ends up having to examine who she is and who she really thinks she is, and comes to find out she's not that at all, and that she's somebody completely different. And this book had been brewing in her brain for several years before she actually wrote it. And once she started writing it, it took her 3 days. And this was actually written during World War II. And once again, she was helping dispense medications. And she actually came up with an excuse and did not go into work, but finished her manuscript. She was in the zone and did not want to break the concentration in the zone she was in. So she got it done in 3 days, missing work. And I have not read this book. I'm waiting till I have the whole collection of Mary Westmacott books. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I'm interested now, having read the history behind the making of the book, what it's all about. So that'll be interesting. And 2 more books that she talks about enjoying and being satisfied with were The Cricket House and Ordeal by Innocence. And I find it interesting. You would think that some of the books that she talks highly of, or like more of her favorites, would be books that involve either Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple, and neither of those books do. They're both standalone books, and I just found that really interesting with some of the really great books that she wrote, like Murder on the Orient Express or Death on the Nile. honestly, I don't know any Miss Marple titles off the top of my head at the moment, but you would think that one of the books that she rates highly would be one of those, but it wasn't. So that was quite interesting to me. The book that she would say that she disliked or she wasn't pleased with, I think is a better way to say it, is The Mystery of the Blue Train. It is a Hercule Poirot book, and for her, she just wasn't pleased with it, and she just found it very, quote, commonplace, that there was nothing different or unique about it, and it was kind of like every other mystery novel. It is one I haven't read, so I'm interested to kind of read from the beginning of Hercule Poirot to where The Mystery of the Blue Train is, and see, like, is this one really kind of blah compared to everything else she wrote before it and after? So we will wait and see. The last thing I just kind of wanted to talk about real briefly is Agatha Christie's second husband, Max Mallowan. He was an archaeologist, and that is how they met. She received an invitation from an archaeologist and his wife to visit them in Ur on one of their digs, and so she went, and Max was there helping with the dig. Long story short, they traveled back home together. He helped her because she had twisted her ankle quite severely and helped her get back home to England. And they were friends, and then they fell in love and got married. And it just seems like he was her yin to her yang. There you go, I can't say words. And they just complemented each other very, very well. She was a very well-known author, and he was a very well-known archaeologist, and they worked together and did life together, and it was a lot of fun to read her words about him. You can tell she loved him. You could tell that she thought very, very highly of him, and he was a really great man from the sounds of it. I enjoyed hearing her experiences on digs with him. They did eventually go to Nineveh and did a dig there, and they found this little interesting piece here called, well, in Iraq they call it the Mona Lisa, I believe, of Iraq, but they just called her the girl in the well because or the lady in the well, because that's where they found her, in a well. And he said that there was this mound in Nimrod that he always wanted to dig because he's like, there's something there. I just know there is. And eventually he did get the opportunity to dig there, and he was right. There was a lot of stuff there. He wrote a book about it called Nimrod and Its Remains. And he did his thing. He was very good at it, and he worked for the British Museum, I believe it was. And he like I said, was famous in his own right as an archaeologist. And so reading about him and getting to know him a little bit better, and just seeing kind of the real solid foundation for her in her life, and how he would, like, when she would fuss about, I'm never going to be able to write another book, and this is the end for me, I'm done. And he'd be like, you're fine, you'll write another book, it'll come to you eventually, dear. Just how he was kind of that calm encouragement in the midst of her crazy thinking of, she's done writing books. And I really enjoy just remembering how much of what appears to be a sweet, loving man he was, but also how intelligent and smart he was when it came to the world of archaeology. So it was a lot of fun. I could talk so much more. There are so many other things from her autobiography that I really enjoy that I would love to expand on. But if I did, it would be another 45-minute video, and I'm not going to do that again. But those are some big highlights that I got out of it. Some things that I were reminded of her life and the people in her life. And if this piques your interest, I highly encourage you to go read the autobiography. Or if you don't want to do that, maybe find some sort of a documentary and just kind of learn a little bit more about her. It was a lot of fun. Now, let's talk buddy reads. Earlier this year, Chaz and I did do a buddy read of The Secret Adversary, and that is the first book in the Tommy and Tuppence series. We have a plan in January to start book number 2 and read out the rest of the series at the beginning of the year. Then we have a plan that every other month we're going to continue to read Agatha Christie books. Now, I am rereading The Secret Adversary this month, since we're doing the second book next month. And I want you right there, you're watching me, I want you to join me in these buddy reads. If Agatha Christie is somebody that you enjoy or it's somebody you want to check out, join me. I would love to have you come and join me. I have created a Discord so that we can have fuller discussions there. You will find a tab that says Agatha Christie with another tab that says Secret Adversary. That initial one is going to be just general discussion of the Secret Adversary, and then I'm going to break it down into chapters like chapters 1 through 3, 3 through 6, etc. And that is where we have discussions about what is happening, about who we think is who done it, who's bad, who's good, who's maybe lying. I want to have discussions about it all. I want to hear all the theories. Now, I have read it, so I know what happens, but I do remember what I was thinking in those sections of the book. So I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and whatnot throughout as well. But I would love it if you joined Chaz and I on our buddy reads of Agatha Christie. If you're not interested in Tommy and Tuppence, but one of the books later in the year does poke your interest, join us. Anytime you want, you are more than welcome to join. And with that, that is my video about Agatha Christie. I really do hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading the book and I enjoyed sharing a little bit of her with you. I appreciate you joining. As always, do the booktubey things. Like if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. I'm at 51 currently. Once I reach 100, we can do that thing that I want to do. I'm kind of stalled out around that 50 mark, so let's get it moving. And if you want to get notified of when I come out with more videos, hit that bell. In the meantime, thank you so much for spending time with me. I know you could be doing other things, walking the dog, braiding your hair, cooking dinner, I don't know, mopping the floor. So I appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day to spend with me. It really doesn't mean a whole lot to me, and I don't take it for granted. And until next time, have a lovely day, and I will see you next time, and go read a good book. So